All right, Matthew 10:23. I'm going to call this biblical time bombs. There are people. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because it's covering a subject. The subject matter is a big name, and you don't really have to know the name to understand it, but it's called Preterism. Preterism is a theological viewpoint that the prophecies, or most of the prophecies of the New Testament, have already been fulfilled. And then, of course, there's different versions of them, partial or full preterism. Either way, they're both wrong. And we'll show you from the Bible why. Um, what they'll do is they'll take anything that's a time statement and say, see, the time statement must mean that it was fulfilled. Therefore, what they do is anything that doesn't add up is they spiritualize it. And by doing that, they've done a disservice to the text. Let's find one. Matthew 10, verse 23. Jesus says to the disciples, but when they persecute you in this city, flee you into another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over this city of Israel till the Son of Man be come. So the preterist will say, see, it says ye, and he's talking to the disciples, and he's telling those disciples they'll not have finished going over all of the cities until the Son of Man be come. Well, wasn't he already there? Okay, well, that's a no-brainer. But they understood what he meant in his kingdom. Well, they did go over all the cities of Israel in the book of Acts. After his death and burial and resurrection and ascension back to heaven, they do go throughout all of the cities of Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. And he didn't come back. So there could still be a possibility that what he means is what he said. So maybe it's for a future event. If you look at Ezekiel 37, you find a valley of dry bones that God brings back to life through Ezekiel. Now, that could be an indication of something he's going to do in the tribulation. Bring those 12 disciples back up and have them do a circuit through the cities of Israel before the second advent, which is the way they took it. However, let's look at the context and see if we can understand some things. Verse 5, Matthew 10, verse 5. Says, these 12, speaking of the disciples, Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not. So obviously he's telling them to keep this thing Jewish. Verse 6, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, only Jews. And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. We don't preach that, but somebody was supposed to. His disciples were supposed to preach the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Verse 11, and into whatsoever city or town ye enter, inquire who in it is worthy, and there abide till you go thence. You know, it'd kind of be nice to be preaching that message. We can travel the world and just walk into a city and say, who's a good person here that'll put me up for a few days? Verse 14, and whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, when you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. You're obviously not doing that. Verse 18, and ye shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them. Who's the them? The governors and the kings, and the Gentiles, because he sent them only to the Jews. So he says this is going to be a testimony to the Gentiles when they begin to persecute you, because I'm going to do some special things. Down to verse 21. And the brother shall deliver up the brother to death, and the father the child, and the children shall raise up against their parents, and cause them to be put to death. Verse 22, and ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. Okay, so the context of you're going to finish going the route of all the cities before the Son of Man comes is this: if you'll endure to the end of what? Well, the context is the end of going through the cities. Then you'll be saved. Saved from what? The Son of Man's destroying everything when he comes back, second advent. Verse 23, 10:23. But when they persecute you in this city, flee you to another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. Okay, the disciples were not hated of all men at this time. That was one of the things he says in the context. Well, look at it in Acts 2. Acts 2, verse 43. Let's see the world's response. This is after Christ's resurrection and going back to heaven, and now here's the disciples doing their ministry. Acts 2:43. And fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done by the apostles. It's having a great effect. Go to chapter 4, verse 4. Chapter 4, verse 4. Howbeit many of them which heard the word believed, and the number of them, of the men, was about 5,000. This is the opposite of being hated of all men. Verse 21. So when they had further threatened them, they let them go, finding nothing wherewith they might punish them because of the people. For all men glorified God for that which was done. Doesn't sound like they're hated of all men yet, does it? Well, this is obviously not fitting with what Christ told those people. Well, he must have been talking about something future, another event. The next thing is the end. He said, they that endure the end, the same that endure the end, the same shall be saved. That end spoken of has a reference to the end of their lives. Really? That's what the preterist is going to tell you. I got news for them. Everybody endures to the end of their life. There's nobody that ever died that didn't endure till they died. So that doesn't work. Endure to the end of what? Endure to the end of the period of time until the Son of Man returns. That's what they were supposed to be doing. Obviously, they didn't endure that long because they all died. None of them are alive today. So they didn't endure that long. So it must be referring to something else in a different group altogether. The them in 10:18. Look at 10:18. Matthew 10:18. Yeah. He says, "And ye shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles." That's referring to the people who are getting ready to witness this event. Now, that's what we read about in further detail in the book of Revelation, and that's where it does fit. The end in every context of the Bible is a reference to the Jews finishing Daniel's 70 weeks in Daniel chapter 9. In either testament, it's a period of time. It's an age. And what the preterist is going to tell you is that age ends at the destruction of the temple in AD 70 when Titus comes in. The problem is what he's done is he's taken one thing literal and then made everything else figurative in order to fit that one piece. The problem is this: it doesn't even work according to their plan. Because we just read, he said he's going to come back before they finish going around the city. So that didn't even work. So when they get to chapter 24 of Matthew, that's where they make their home. It really doesn't work. Look at Daniel 9, verse 26. Daniel 9, verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and sanctuary. Now, what they'll say is this: Christ, that's 3.5 years. They'll say that puts Christ, right? His ministry is 3.5 years, so that must have been Christ. What they've done is they've substituted the Antichrist for Christ. That's satanic. Our verse says right here, Messiah. Then he gives a different character, the prince that shall come. That must be different than Messiah. He knows how to say Messiah. If he meant that, he would have said it again. He says, but it be cut off not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. And unto the end war, desolations are determined. Unto the end, wars, desolations are determined. Okay. So who's doing the desolation in the wars? According to the context, it's the prince of the people that's going to come, not Jesus Christ. So what they'll do is they'll link the destruction of the temple in 70 AD and say, see, it was destroyed. But their focus is wrong. The one who destroys it is one king or one emperor, not all of the nations, and it's not the Antichrist, although they'll claim it's the Antichrist. We'll get into that a little more. Verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. This is the prince of the people that's going to come. That's obviously the Antichrist. In the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease for the overspreading of abominations. Now, that did not happen with Titus. He didn't cause an abomination. He didn't bring Obama in. I mean, no. However, that did happen about 200 or 300 BC when Antiochus Epiphanes came in. He came in and destroyed Jerusalem and sacrificed a pig. Titus didn't do that. So you get many pictures, many warnings of the final event, but the warnings are not the final event. They're simple pictures to show them what to be what to be afraid of. Okay, where did we stop? Sacrifice of oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abomination he shall make it desolate, even to the consumption, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Look at Daniel chapter 8. Daniel 8, verse 17. So I came near where so he came near where I stood. And when he came, I was afraid and fell on my face. But he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end, we've read about the end, shall be the vision. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. Verse 19. And he said, behold, I will make thee to know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed, the end shall be. Okay, so the end, they understood. He's talking to Jewish disciples. These Jewish disciples know the Jewish scripture. Therefore, when he says end, they understood what end means. Just because a preterist doesn't change it. Daniel 7, verse 25. Daniel 7, verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and to think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. That is 3.5 years. If a time is 1 year, times would be 2, and a half would be half a year, 3.5. Verse 26. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto, there's our word again, the end. He's clearly laid out what the end is. Look at chapter 11. Chapter 11, verse 35. And some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed. And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. Now, this does not fit with Nero. Nero, of course, Nero thought he was God, but he served many gods. Verse 38. But in his estate shall he honor the God of forces. Something satanic, supernatural. But a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus shall he do in the most stronghold with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. And he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. Antiochus Epiphanes didn't do it. Neither did Tyrus. Verse 40. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him. This is a different king than the Antichrist, isn't it? The king of the south. So obviously, if you take Nero to be the king, the Antichrist, then there's got to be another country coming to start war against him. At the time Titus comes in, he doesn't have another country coming after him. He's mad at Jerusalem and tears it down. The only reason he took it apart is because the gold was melting. They set it on fire and the gold started melting, and he said, let's get all that gold. Smart thing. Okay, that's the time of the end, verse 40. At the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. So obviously it's a a regional war. At that time, it would have been considered world war, because they didn't know about us over here. Daniel 12, Daniel 12, verse 8. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. That is, there's many more things to get out of the book. However, I'm going to hold off on it until the time of the end. Then understanding will be open. Verse 10. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Verse 11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, somebody has to come in and take the daily sacrifice away. Titus didn't do that. He took the temple away. I mean, in essence, that does, but this is something specific. The Bible is specific. And the abomination that maketh desolate set up. Titus didn't set that up. There shall be 1,290 days. Now, the Bible's so specific, it tells you how many days you can count. Verse 12. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 days. But go thy way till the end, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of days. Now, I don't hear anybody talking about this. Obviously, before the end, something has to happen. We know the disciples have to try to attempt going through all the cities, and then the Son of Man comes. That's how you make the Bible make sense. Let it say what it just said. Don't tell it means something else. So obviously, those disciples have to come back and try to do a circuit around the city. I'm going to find you a verse right here somewhere. Uh, what am I looking for? Look at Revelation. Revelation chapter, we'll start in chapter 1. And we saw what Daniel was just told. Hang on, no more understanding. Seal it up. We're done for now. However, at the end, there's going to be understanding. And at the end, I'm going to open the book back up. What do you say? And then the last thing we heard, the instruction to Daniel himself, was you'll stand in your lot at the end of days, not the end of your days, the end of days. We've seen so far the end always referred to a special event, the Advent. Revelation 1, verse 1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. Who in the world is the angel? Whoever that is dictating some information to John. Let's see if we can find him. Chapter 19. Chapter 19, verse 10. And I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren, and have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. Whomever this angel was a kinfolk of John. He was a Jew of thy brethren and a fellow servant. The same title given to the Jews in the Old Testament is servants of God. We serve God, but that's not our title. We're children, we're sons. Look at it in chapter 20. Or no, chapter 22. 22, verse 9. Now go back to verse 8. Revelation 22, verse 8. I, John, saw these things and heard them. And when I had heard and seen, I fell down and worshipped before the feet of the angel which showed me these things. And he said unto me, See thou do it not. Haven't I already told you this once? For I am thy fellow servant. What's the fellow servant thing about? Well, John said in chapter 1, I'm your companion in tribulation. This angel's already showed him the tribulation. And he says, I'm your fellow servant here in the same situation with you, and of thy brethren. I'm a Jew too, the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of the book, worship God. Okay. So this event obviously did not happen, and it's prophesied to happen. So that has to happen too. Now, if God can bring Daniel back, God can bring Moses and Elijah back, he can definitely bring the 12 back, because he told them they've got to go through all the cities before he shows up. Well, they did it in his time in 33 AD, and he didn't come back. Well, he hadn't left yet. You got to leave before you can come back. He didn't leave yet. What the preterists will say is that he comes back in a spiritual coming, not physical. It's spiritual. He comes back spiritually in judgment on Jerusalem. That's not the fulfillment. The fulfillment is he comes back in judgment against all nations. Why? Because all nations are influenced by the Antichrist, but not only that, a lot of people ignore this. The Antichrist wreaks havoc. It's not a time of peace when the Antichrist shows up. It's a time of war. The Antichrist will have, just like we're having now, war on war. And it will be everybody against everybody. He doesn't unite everybody. They come up to fight it. We just read about from the south and from the north, and from the that would be from the west, coming in through ships. Okay, Matthew 24, verse 13. We've got some info about the end and the events of it. Now let's see how this lines up. Matthew 24, 13. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Keeps bringing the same thing up. Verse 14. And this gospel of the kingdom. What gospel? The gospel is this: if you endure to the end, you'll be saved. That's the good news. If you can make it through this thing and don't die before, he comes back, you'll get to go into the kingdom. You'll endure to the millennium. Verse 14. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. So it's not just enough that they cover all the cities. Now he's further clarified. You've got to cover all the world with this message. That's not the message we preach. I'm not preaching somebody try to hang out and hold on until the millennium starts, and then you'll know you'll be saved. No, that's dangerous. But somebody was to preach that, and they were to preach it only to Jews. Look at it in Acts 10. No, not 10, Acts 11. Acts 11, verse 19. Here's the disciples all the way deep into Acts. Cornelius is saved in chapter 10, a Gentile. And this is still the connotation of what the Jews are doing. Acts 11, verse 19. Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenicia and Cyprus and Antioch, preaching the word to none but unto the Jews only. Still a Jewish message. They're still obeying what Jesus had told them early on in Matthew: only go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So that's the connotation. That's what the Jews are understanding. So the end doesn't obviously refer to the destruction there of with Titus in 70 AD. Many who endured to the end were not saved in that time. Many of them endured past the destruction of Titus and weren't saved. God didn't grant them salvation just for enduring the temple being destroyed. Furthermore, many were saved spiritually, followers of Christ, yet died in the destruction of Titus. That didn't save them. So that can't be the fulfillment of it. Both history and the Word of God tell us the facts, and to manipulate them to make them fit one convenient story makes a liar out of God and history. Look at 1 Corinthians. If you want to put a timestamp on it, this is about 50 AD. He says, 1 Corinthians 15, verse 5. And that he was seen of Cephas. Then of the 12. After that, he was seen of above 500 brethren at once. Notice this: of whom the greater part remaineth unto this present, but some are fallen asleep. Wait a minute. They've fallen asleep. Obviously, they must have not endured to the end. Okay, so a lot of them are already dying. Obviously, Paul didn't make it to endure to the end. Peter doesn't make it to endure to the end. But yet all of them are still preaching the same message. Look at verse 7. After that, he was seen of James and then of all the apostles. What happens to James? He dies. Verse 8. And last of all, it was saying of me also, as one born out of due time, for I am the least of the apostles, that am not meet to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God I am what I am, and his grace, which was bestowed upon me, was not in vain, but I labored more abundantly than they all. Yea, not I, but the grace of God which was in me. The crowning insult in the whole system of a preterist is that the Son of Man didn't come at 70 AD, but he wasn't supposed to come at 70 AD. If they're going to take the word literal, he's supposed to come prior to it. So 70 doesn't work either. The reason they love this is because they say it's all neat and tidy. We can say that Jerusalem died here because there's not one stone on the other, which he promised. So we've seen one event fulfilled, therefore that must mean everything was fulfilled. No, it's simply a picture of more to come. Look at, let's see, Jeremiah. Jeremiah 30. Jeremiah 30, verse 7. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. Now, we've got some context because we've lived past 70 AD. Now, I wasn't alive then, I don't think. I'm old, but not quite that old. We've seen some events. We know history has produced some terrible events that were worse than 70 AD. 70 AD may have been bad for a group of people worshiping at a temple, but it didn't affect anybody in India. It didn't affect anybody in China. So there's going to be some worse events. Throughout history, we've seen it. Hitler was pretty bad. Mao Zedong was pretty bad. Pol Pot, pretty bad. We've seen a lot of them, a lot worse as far as we're concerned. But he says there's coming a day that's even worse than anything you've ever seen. Nobody's seen that yet. It's still on the horizon. Look at verse 8. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will break. Okay, now we're going to start seeing some details. I lost my place. I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. That is, this is the events. The tribulation is referred to as the time of Jacob's trouble. It's Jewish. It's to finish out what they owe their God that they've offended. In Daniel chapter 9, he finishes out their transgression by punishing them that long. At the end of that, they've paid up. They're still paying their dues. He calls it the time of Jacob's trouble. Notice the context of it is there's a yoke that he's breaking. That yoke is important because it's going to tell us all these things about it. Go back in Jeremiah 27. Jeremiah 27, verse 2. Thus saith the Lord to me, make thee bonds and yokes and put them upon thy neck. Got some funny necklace. Jeremiah 27, verse 6. And now have I given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, my servant. My servant? You know, Nebuchadnezzar is a picture of the Antichrist. God calls him his servant. And so is the Antichrist. The Antichrist doesn't get to run around willy-nilly doing whatever he wants. He's still under the control of God. He can't take one step farther than God allows. And the beast of the field have I given him also to serve him. And all nations shall serve him, and his son's son, until the very time of his land come. And then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of him. This is that bond and yoke there. It's in the context of tribulation days. He calls it the king of Babylon. Obviously, it was not fulfilled by Nebuchadnezzar and the king of Babylon, although it was promised to them. Well, it's still got to be future. There's still an event where it will happen. Jeremiah 28, look at verse 4. Jeremiah 28, verse 4. And I will bring again to this place Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, with all the captives of Judah that went into Babylon, saith the Lord. For I will break, there it is again, the yoke of the king of Babylon. This yoke is always connected with Israel's captivity. That's God's punishment for them. Isaiah 14. Isaiah 14, verse 25. No, verse 25. Isaiah 14, 25. That I will break the Assyrian in my land. Well, that's not Nebuchadnezzar and that's not Babylon. So there's many pictures of one event. It's still a small picture of a big thing that's to follow. The big thing, of course, is going to be the Antichrist himself. He says, I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot. This is second advent. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from their shoulders. Same thing. He's using the same phrasing over and over. Ezekiel 34. Ezekiel 34, verse 27. And the trees, I'm going to read fast because we're getting late. Ezekiel 34, verse 27. And the trees of the field shall yield their fruit, and the earth shall yield her increase, and they shall be safe in their land. Not now. One day they will be. And shall know that I am the Lord when I have broken the bands of their yoke and delivered them out of the hand of those that serve themselves of them. Obviously, second advent. Hasn't happened yet. Israel is the picture of prophecy yet to be fulfilled because they still don't have rest. Of all the nations, that tiny little dot on the map, why is everybody mad at them? It's spiritual. There's something bigger at play than economics, something bigger at play than just humanity. Look at Matthew 16. Matthew 16, verse 27. He says, For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Preterists love this verse because they say, you see there, he clearly said, some of you people standing right here will not die until you see the Son of Man show up in his kingdom. That's millennium. And we'll have to leave it there. We'll finish that next time. We'll start there. But that, because there's too many verses, that's 20 pages to finish that one. But that's the one we'll start on next week. And I probably got about 30 verses of how they take the scripture out of context in order to make it say one thing when it says another. And I'll give you context from the Bible to understand it. All right, we'll pick up there next week.